Are we live? Shall we do this? All right, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you? My name is Anthony Giglio, and I'm the guy with the unpronounceable speed bump in the middle of my name that makes some of you want to call me Gigolo. And maybe that has nothing to do with how it's spelled. How about that? Some of you may know me as a longtime contributing wine editor to Food and Wine magazine, or as the wine director for the American Express Centurion Lounge Global Network. If you're my mom, you just think I'm one of the funniest wine geeks you'll ever meet, and I'll take that too. But seriously, I'm a journalist and a card-carrying sommelier since 1991. I studied about wine to actually write about it for a living, which has given me immense pleasure and taken me to spectacular places around the world to meet wonderful people, three of whom we are going to meet tonight and taste some delicious wine with. But before we get started, I'd like to encourage you to ask any questions in the chat feature, and we'll try to land on them later in the discussion. And apologies in advance if we don't get to all the questions, but we have a lot to say and a lot to drink. In that chat, you will also find information on how to purchase these wines that we'll be tasting and talking about tonight, either for the first time for you, or maybe again, if you already ordered them. So cheers to those who already ordered the wines. And if you didn't, you are going to love them if it's the first time. You can go directly to each of the wineries' websites to order them individually. But at checkout, add the shipping code PINOT5 for $5 flat rate ground shipping on all purchases, each wine separately though through each of the wineries. This code is actually valid through Saturday, February 13th, which gives you exactly 2 more days to order them for yourselves, or for my birthday, which just happens to be next Saturday, the 20th. But I'm just, I'm just passively aggressively throwing it out there. Hold on just a second. This is just in. The Cuve San Pinot Noir is a limited, the Cuve San Pommard Pinot Noir is a limited production wine, and they only have a few bottles left. So that wine is available exclusively through purchase through Cuve San's website. Get it while you can. But I gotta say, to be filed under just saying, if I were you, Goldeneye and Chappellet, I'd make up a fire sale before this tasting's over to get your limited bottles out there too before they're gone. Just saying, just saying. How's everybody doing? Are we ready? Let's talk about California Pinot and the people who make them. I'm going to start here with 1967. Thomas Parkhill traveled to Napa Valley in search of high quality grapes, where he met winemaking legend Louis Martini. Martini pointed him westward towards the Pinot Noir vineyard in Los Carneros. 2 years later, Parkhill and his partner Thomas Cottrell founded Cuvaison, with Parkhill making Cuvaison's inaugural vintage of Chardonnay. 10 years later, Cuvaison was acquired by the Schmidheiny family of Switzerland, who still own the winery today. The Schmidheiny cemented Cuvaison's focus on Chardonnay and Pinot Noir by acquiring 400 acres of highly prized land north of San Pablo Bay in Napa Valley. The unique conditions here, which make Los Carneros the coolest wine region in Napa Valley, resulted in it becoming the first American viticultural area in California to be established based entirely on climate in 1983. Since 2002, Steve Rogstad has been at the winemaking helm. In his nearly 2 decades at Cuvaison, he has made his focus to preserve the character of the vineyards, with the vineyards almost 40 different blocks of Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. Steve does as many as 80 individual fermentations each vintage, a small batch, labor-intensive approach that defines Cuvaison's estate-grown wines. It is my pleasure to welcome Cuvaison winemaker Steve Rogstad. Steve, it's a pleasure to see you again. What deliciousness have you made for us tonight?
Thank you, Anthony. It's a pleasure to see you. And thanks to everybody who tuned in to fly their Pinot flags with us tonight. Looking forward to this fun tasting and enjoying the company of you and Katey and Phillip. So cheers to that. What I have today is our 2018 Pommard Pinot Noir. So you'll notice this is in a white label, which we like to call our white space. And that's the area where the winemakers get to experiment and to play and to really dig into this bit of terroir that is our vineyard. So this wine is not only a single vineyard Pinot Noir, but it's a single clone within a single vineyard. So we're really kind of focused in on one little plot of land and have bottled up 4 barrels from this particular block of Pommard clone Pinot Noir. And this is a clone that kind of predates the arrival of a lot of the Dijon clones, which is what you see a lot of Pinot Noir winemakers working with today. But before that time, we were really working with vineyard selections from different places. This is a selection that came out of Adelsheim Vineyard in Willamette Valley. And we've had planted on the vineyard for a long, long time. It's one of my favorite selections to work with because it has all of the things we look for in Pinot Noir from the Carmenos estate, which is a nice savory character coupled with some red fruits and some black fruits. So you get this beautiful blend of plummy, kind of plummy dark fruit, but also on the finish, you'll find that kind of nice, bright cherry fruit as well. So it's a good representation of Pinot Noir and Carmenos, along with that ever-present kind of allspice note or clove note that really kind of showcases our site.
Beautiful. Steve, in the interest of keeping us on time and given that you know I'm from the New York area, let's play elevator pitch subway style. Here's how it works. We pretend we just met on the subway, and you have to know you have exactly one stop to tell me about yourself and Cuvaison before I have to jump off. Are you game, Steve?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, so for context, we are on the D train departing Columbus Circle. You have exactly 2 minutes before we get to 125th Street. Go.
Go, all right. So Steve Rogstad, winemaker with Cuvaison. I've been here for 20 years. I got into winemaking the way most people do. I studied something else, in my case, literature. And decided I had a passion for this line of work and dove into it. The Cuvaison estate is a family-owned property, and it's only had 3 winemakers since the Schmidt-Honey family bought it: Philip Tony, John Thatcher, and myself. So there's been a nice lineage here at the estate, and since we're not making wines from a lot of different areas, we're really focused on this one piece of property. It really allows us to learn our terroir. And I've had the pleasure of replanting some of this vineyard myself. All of us have had a hand in planting it and designing it and laying it out. So we're all invested in that way in the success of the winery and what it's doing. And then in 2004, we got to build a brand new winery right in the heart of the vineyard and relocate from our original home in Calistoga down here to Los Carneros. And we are now making our wines right in the heart of the vineyard.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Steve. Up next, Don and Molly Chapellet founded Chapellet Winery in 1967, the same year I was born. Did I mention my birthday is next Saturday, the 20th? And with shipping code Pinot5, you could send your best wishes. Anyway, since its founding, Chapellet has earned a reputation for crafting some of the world's greatest Cabernet Sauvignons. But in addition to its much sought after mountain-grown cabs from Pritchard Hill and Napa, the Chapellet portfolio also includes Chenin Blanc, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, and the Chapellet Grower Collection, which focuses on cool climate Chardonnay and Pinot Noir from the greatest family farm vineyards of Sonoma County. In 1981, Philip joined the Chapellet team as assistant winemaker, where he spent 4 years honing his craft before pursuing winemaking opportunities elsewhere. I love that part. You were there, left, and came back. In 1990, Don Chapellet invited Philip back to return to the winery as Chapellet's winemaker, position he has held for 3 decades. Tonight, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Chapellet winemaker Phillip Corallo-Titus. Philip, what amazingness did you bring for us to drink tonight?
This is the 2018 Appellation Pinot Noir from the Russian River, but it's actually from the Green Valley of Russian River Valley, which is a small area within the Russian River appellation, and it's to the west. So it's a beautiful area. I mean, I think I was probably attracted to the area for its beauty before I knew a lot about the Pinot Noirs. It's very rural and rustic, and this vineyard is only 9 miles from the Pacific Ocean. So, you know, with Pinot Noir, you look for cool climates, and you look for places where Cabernet doesn't grow well. And so this is, you know, we kind of pushed it out there and kind of found our home out there. And the Appellation is funny. It's the first vineyard that I bought grapes from. It's farmed by the Dutton brothers. It is owned by them now. It wasn't when I started with them, but I just I only knew very little about Pinot Noir when I started making it, but the one thing I knew was Russian River and Dutton, and ended up giving them a call and finding this vineyard. And so we've been there ever since, and our footprint just keeps growing there. Anytime somebody blinks, we take over their part of the vineyard.
Perfect. Philip, we are on the number 7 train express from Queensboro Plaza to Flushing, and the conductor just announced we're bypassing Woodside, Jackson Heights, and Junction Boulevard, which gives you exactly 2 minutes to tell me about yourself before I jump off.
Yeah, since I really don't know where I am at this stage, but I'll take your word for it. I'm probably okay.
We're way out in Queens. We're lost.
So I'm Phillip Titus, and winemaker at Chappellet Winery. And I've been there most of my life. I actually grew up on a vineyard in St. Helena, and it's where a vineyard that my parents bought in the 60s, same year that the Chappellets bought their property. I didn't know the Chapellet kids. They're all my age, but I went to different schools than them, so I didn't meet them till later. But I grew up on a vineyard, and maybe it is unusual. I wish I had studied literature, but I went and studied enology, which was not that interesting to an 18-year-old. But I stuck with it, and I knew I wanted to be around the vines, and then the wine was just so enticing that I went into winemaking. My first job when I got out of Davis was working as the assistant winemaker for Chappellet. And I've been so attracted to the place. I love Chappellet. It's in the background here. You can imagine why. But I've been there, with the exception of being gone for about 5 years, but I always stayed in touch with the Chappellets. That I've been at Chappellet now since I got out of Davis in 1981.
Amazing, amazing. And this is delicious. They're both actually, both of the wines, guys, I'm two-fisting it right now. They're all delicious. And we have one more that I'm going to need a third hand for. Next up, Don and Molly Duckhorn founded Goldeneye in 1996, 2 decades after establishing Duckhorn Vineyards as a model of world-class Bordeaux varietal wines, specifically their legendary Duckhorn Merlots. After the great success in Napa, they turned toward Pinot Noir and found their way to Anderson Valley in Mendocino County, just north of Sonoma, and founded Goldeneye. Winemaker Katey Larwood nearly made the same mistake I did, planning to study journalism, when a wine appreciation class she attended totally derailed her plans, and she instead earned a degree in viticulture and enology from Cal Poly. Good for you, Katey. She has worked at vineyards in New Zealand, Australia, France, and New York's Finger Lakes before landing at Goldeneye in 2016. Goldeneye winemaker Katey Larwood, it is so great to meet you here.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Katey, what fabulousness have you brought us to taste tonight?
All right, so we're drinking the Goldeneye Anderson Valley. Yep, there you go, you did it for me. That guy, and we call that the white label, not the white space like Steve, but I might steal that if you'll let me. So this wine, we like to kind of describe this wine as a snapshot or a bird's eye view of Anderson Valley. So what this wine is it's all of our vineyards and our lovely grower vineyards as well, which are all from Anderson Valley. And it spans the east to west length of the valley, but also kind of the height of Anderson Valley, which can get pretty high, up to about 2,000 feet in elevation. So encapsulates the whole Anderson Valley. And our goal for this wine is just to kind of showcase what Anderson Valley can do and how beautiful and unique and special the region is.
Fantastic. All right, so Katey, we just met on the train to the plane, the A Express from Euclid Avenue in Brooklyn. We have 5 short stops to JFK to tell me about yourself and Goldeneye before I take off in my dreams to sunny Sicily. Go.
Well, you kind of already said my bio, so all of that stuff that you already said, Anthony.
It doesn't have to, you're too young for this. I mean, everyone else has got a little more.
Yeah, sure. Too young. Anyway.
Superstar.
I am the newbie in the group, but yeah, so I'm originally from the San Francisco Bay Area, not from beautiful St. Helena, which would be lovely, but kind of a concrete suburban area. And like you said, just totally fell into wine serendipitously. And we kind of describe coming into the wine industry as getting bit by the wine bug, and it absolutely happened to me that way. So haven't really looked back since, but I've been up in Anderson Valley with Goldeneye for about 4 years, and it's been wonderful, and it's magic, and I love every second of it. But Goldeneye, like you said, Anthony, we're celebrating our 25th anniversary this season, which is pretty exciting. And we've been fully dedicated to making Anderson Valley Pinot Noir for 25 years. So that has been our shtick, and it's been a wild ride and really fun to explore everything that Anderson Valley can bring, even in our 15-mile long valley.
Fantastic. Cheers to that. I'm going to take a social for everybody. If you have a glass, let's raise it. Okay, I have a question for all of you. So there's no particular order. I was talking to the group before we started to say, unlike a panel where we could all jump over each other, Zoom cuts us off. So we have to like raise hands if we want to jump in. But let's talk about Pinot Noir. This grape is known for expressing itself very differently depending on where it's grown. So in terms of the appellations each of you are representing, what would you say makes each one so unique and so special? Anybody?
Go ahead, Katey.
Okay, sure, I'll go.
We'll start north and work backwards.
Okay, we can do that. We'll play that. Yeah, so Anderson Valley is just a truly unique and special area, like all of our regions here today. So I hope that all of you guys are able to go and visit Anderson Valley at some point if you haven't already, but I'll kind of paint a picture of what it is. We're in the southern Mendocino coast, so we're way out there, way out in the boonies. It's about a 2.5-hour drive from San Francisco north. So our valley is about 15 miles long, and like I said earlier, it goes up in elevation about 2,000 feet. So it's pretty extreme up in the ridge tops. So that 15-mile long valley is full of Pinot Noir, a little bit of Chardonnay, and some Alsatian varieties is where the appellation actually got its roots in Alsace. So Pinot does phenomenally well in Anderson Valley because of a couple things. So we have the coastal proximity. So kind of like Phillip's Vineyard being 8 miles from the coast, I believe you said, our closest vineyard is 8 miles from the coast. So we kind of share that same experience of coastal influence. But another really unique characteristic of Anderson Valley is its extreme diurnal shifts. So kind of an example of this is any time in the growing season in the summer, we can have upwards to high 80s, 90-degree temperatures, and then it'll drop like clockwork every night to about 45 degrees. So we are having kind of the extreme shifts and swings during the day. So it lends itself really, really nicely to ripening fully and getting that fruit and sugar concentration, but also dialing it back and restraining ripening, but also retaining acidity, which is critical for Pinot Noir. So that's my little snapshot of Anderson Valley. Take it away, Phil.
Okay. Well, so my background is Cabernet. And so, I came to Pinot Noir kind of late in life because, I spent so many years just toiling over, trying to figure out how to make great Cabernet. And it's, I get it now. I think back in those early years, I was probably struggling just to kind of put it all together in my mind. So my background is in Cabernet, but, we also made Chardonnay. So we really found the Russian River Valley through following the path of where does the best Chardonnay come from. And then we went into southern Napa Valley and then to the Carneros and then Sonoma Carneros and then out to Russian River. And, once we saw these Pinot Noir vines, it's like you just cannot, you can't leave them alone. You just have to make Pinot Noir once it's like a calling. It just pulls you in. And the Russian River is they're just wines that I always liked. I think, there's like a richness that comes with the fruit from the Russian River Valley, kind of a hedonistic character. And it just kind of pulled us in, and it's also close enough to Napa Valley that we can actually drive there, as opposed to Anderson Valley, which is a terrible drive to get from Napa to Anderson Valley and back in the same day. So the Russian River had a number of things going for it, but it's really the character of the wines that came, that I knew from Russian River Valley. Like I always tasted the Costa Brown and Paul Hobbs and Dellinger, things like that. They were always wines that I followed. So it was easy to kind of fit in there and emulate some of the rock stars in the Russian River Valley. But, we talk about being close to the coast, but what I see in the Russian River Valley is this very moderate climate, just because of the way they're behind the hills from the coast. A lot of fog, not a lot of wind like Carneros, and it's this very even growing condition. And I think that's why the grapes kind of ripen up slowly, but they ripen up with a lot of flavor. So it's you get out there, it's never that hot, it's never that cold, but it's just very moderate, and the vines, they don't suffer like Cabernet has to suffer. So it's been a very good place to explore, and the more I hear about Anderson Valley, it makes me want to go there and explore that winemaking region, but it's too far to drive.
Oh, come on, Phil, you're welcome anytime.
Yeah.
So from the East Coast, I just feel like you guys could all just, fly in your private planes to each other and play, bocce ball on the lawn. I don't know. I thought you were all friends and neighbors. But Steve
and I are neighbors.
Steve, talk to us about Los Carneros.
Okay, so Los Carneros was really the first appellation kind of founded around Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And it was an area that's at the southern ends of Napa and Sonoma Valley. The difference really from the Napa side is it's right where the Mayacamas Mountains kind of tumble down into the bay. So our vineyard is quite hilly, and it has one area of it that's a little lower lying, that's along Carneros Creek. Whereas once you go over the hills and into the Sonoma side of Los Carneros, it's a broad floodplain at the bottom of Sonoma Valley. And so most of Carneros is really more famous for Chardonnay than Pinot Noir, simply because most of the ground is more suited to growing Chardonnay than Pinot Noir. Pinot is not a variety that likes heavy soils. It wants to be on the hillsides, and it doesn't want to be at the tops of the hills or the bottom of the hills. It wants to be in the middle of the hills. So it's a real finicky variety in that sense, and that's where it really expresses itself. So we're in this kind of swath of hills that tumble down into the bay, and we can see San Pablo Bay, which is the northern end of San Francisco Bay. It's just 1.5 miles from the vineyard. So we are in a spot where we are really dependent upon the fog as our cooling mechanism. So every night the fog comes in through the Golden Gate, pushes up the Napa River, and it blankets our area. And then in the morning, it kind of peels back and retreats back to the bay. So we get that cool influence in the morning. And then in the afternoon, when the central part of California starts to heat up, it creates this vacuum and sucks cold air through the Golden Gate, and that blows right across the Carneros region. So that combination of wind and fog are really what help define the Carneros region as a Pinot Noir spot. And I like in our spot, I mentioned it earlier when we were tasting the Pommard, that it really drives this kind of combination of red fruits and black fruits. And I find some areas for Pinot Noir really are more dark fruited, and other areas are very, very acid driven, structured, very red fruited wines. And I think our area is kind of in the sweet spot where we get a little bit of both of those characters and a lot of nice spice notes to it. So it's an area I've worked in since my first job in the wine business was with Sainsbury Winery, working for Dick and Dave. And of course, they were dedicated to making Pinot Noirs. They did a lot of the early clonal trials that everybody benefited from. And so I've been working with Carneros fruit essentially my entire career.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Steve. Listen, all of you, I want to, this is for anybody, there's no order here. Of the 3 wines in this tasting, Cuve San is a single clone wine. Chapellet is a single vineyard wine with 3 clones, and Goldeneye is a blend that is more focused on embodying the broader Anderson Valley. Why does Pinot Noir lend itself to these different approaches, and what is the secret to the success of each of these different wines? Let's start in the middle. Phil.
Okay. Well, I think it works kind of every which way. And Pinot Noir is very, to me, it's that very site-specific wine. It's, the nuances that come from the soils and the climate and the aspect of the hills and things like that. I think it really makes a big difference in Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir is kind of very sort of a tricky, little challenging, kind of finicky grape to make wine from, always very rewarding, but all these little nuances make a big difference. But what attracted me to making this wine is that it's a really great site. It's these soils, the Goldridge fine sandy loam soils, that's the typical soil for the Russian River or parts of it, but certainly in the Green Valley. And so it's got these kind of lean but powdery soils. The vines grow moderately. They don't carry a lot of crop, and their canopies are pretty moderate. So it's kind of a fast ripener in a way, even though it's cool. But what I like about it is the entire site is really very good. And then we have 3 clones. We have the Dijon 667, 777, and 115. And we have enough of them that when we're making this wine, we don't have to use all of them. We can use all of them, or we can use just one of them. And so with that kind of diversity, we make the wines. We pretty much know these blocks, the way they're going to react, which one has more tannin, which one has more color, the spice from 115. But we kind of let that each vintage kind of play out, and then we choose the best. So we're not just down to that one thing that has to be perfect every year. We still, and this maybe comes from our Bordeaux model, it's always blend with Bordeaux varieties. And so I think I like that ability to mix and match a little bit and try to get the best out of the vintage by having, different things to work with.
Katey, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to that. Definitely similar style as Phil to blending. Is this wine is a blend of all of our Anderson Valley vineyards, all of our vineyards and our grower fruit. And so what we're trying to do with this wine is, because it spans the whole valley and up and down and every which way, is we're trying to focus and have a core Anderson Valley nest, as well as showcase the vintage, right? So that's really, really important. And really, you can't hide that with Pinot, right? But it's truly fun. We make so many different wines of either a larger blend like this or a single vineyard, although we don't do anything like Steve does, where we go full clonal selection, which would be kind of fun. So I might propose that tomorrow when I go back to work. But it's fun that you can do anything with Pinot, but what it does have to do, and the only way that you can showcase a true Pinot Noir is if you show your region or your vineyard or your clone, right? So you're focusing in and you're dialing that in really specifically in a specific way. So that's what we've done with our Anderson Valley wine.
Steve.
Yeah, and for us, we like to show the differences of Pinot Noir here at the winery by doing a variety of different bottlings. Some of them just exclusively from this estate vineyard, but we also work with some vineyards in different appellations as well, where we'll look to do an expression of, say, Petaluma Gap or Russian River or Santa Rita Hills, something along those lines, and gives us an opportunity to understand the impact that these different appellations have on the variety versus the impact that we see in our own vineyard. And then with our own site, we do some of these bottlings where they might be just a specific clone, or they might be a part of the vineyard that has a unique soil, and we want to capture that flavor on its own. And then also, but everything is really kind of built around making that main blend that we do, which is our Carmenos Estate Pinot Noir, what it is today. And all of those learnings pour into making that wine. That's our flagship wine for Pinot Noir. So we do make a bottling off of our estate. It's our estate Pinot Noir. And that's really the wine you can find out in the marketplace as well.
All right, great. Phillip, a question for you. You are, as obviously an acknowledged Cabernet guy, late to Pinot Noir. What do you love about working with Pinot Noir? Or let's be honest, do you love working with Pinot Noir? And what are the biggest challenges?
The drive. No, I'm just kidding.
Made me do it. I really didn't want to make Pinot Noir. No, I like it. It's kind of like the opposite of making Cabernet. And it's kind of nice to be able to do that, because Cabernet, especially from Pritchard Hill, it's like an avalanche that comes down, when you crush the grapes. It's color, it's tannin, and you're challenged by, the term tannin management probably didn't come from making Pinot Noir. It really came from making Cabernet, because you're always challenged with the wines almost being too big. And then when you turn to Pinot Noir, it's the opposite. At least my impression of Pinot Noir is that you have to work at it. You don't want to leave any money on the table. If it's in that grape, you pretty much want it. And so you have to work for the color. You have to work to get the tannin. Some years, gosh, there's very little tannin. The next year, it's like overwhelmingly tannic from the same block. So I'd say Pinot Noir, it varies more from year to year than Cabernet. There's always these curveballs, and we've gotten to the point where we're like the starting gate. We're like, what's going to happen this year with Pinot Noir? And we're always challenged by trying to unlock those little secrets from those vineyards. But the payoff is this just absolutely gorgeous wine that it's almost like, we've added another child to the family, and, now we're complete with Pinot Noir. It's really enriching what we do. And for everybody that makes wine, everybody's learned a lot about it. And we've met amazing people out in the Russian River.
Fantastic. Katey, what do you look for in a great Pinot Noir?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think honestly, Pinot is pretty versatile. We have, obviously it can't be grown in certain areas, so there are some limitations there, but wherever you find little pockets of Pinot Noir around the world, I kind of go, you can have a beautifully lean and kind of herbaceous and acid focused beautiful wine, and then you can have this lush kind of extracted and dense Pinot, and it's beautiful. So, and you can have everything in the middle. So it's really a versatile variety in that way, where you can have many different styles and it still be wonderful. But for me personally, my kind of go-to for what I like to drink and what I'm searching for in our wines is structure and balance. That's probably the most important two things that we're searching for. So has to have that.
Fantastic. I want to read a question that it's perfect for you, Steve. Dorothy Green writes, all terrific and so different. What makes the Cuvaison a little drier than the Goldeneye? I'd like to understand the differences.
Well, it could be the fact that this is just a single clone, single lot bottling. All of our Pinots are fermented dry, and the wine has this kind of savory quality to it. So maybe there's a response to that kind of spice element in the wine that makes it feel a little bit drier.
Okay, this is a question for I'd say Phillip first. Phillip, what has changed about Pinot Noir that you're making today versus 10, 20 years ago? Like, what have you seen in the way it's being made now versus how it was made historically in the last 30 years, 20, 30 years?
Well, I think Pinot Noir has always been, about these microcosms, about like exploring, like Williams and Cellium. I have no idea how many wines they make, 40 different Pinots, something like that. But it's always been about exploring the individual parts of a vineyard, or part of a appellation. So I think people have just kind of drilled down deeper into different clones, different locations, really finding the best sites. It's all about location. And I think, what's probably changed, unless you're replanting your vineyards, which is you do see some really beautiful new vineyards, close space vineyards, perfect row directions, and soil preparation that is really set up to make a high quality wine. But I think people have invested in facilities, like Cuvaison building. I've been to Cuvaison's winery. It's all like dialed in for Pinot Noir. And I think if you go back in time, people made Pinot in like milk tanks and just anything that would hold a grape, and they're out there punching it down. And now it's quite state of the art. It's all the different, the crushers, the optical sorters, the control that you have. But then that reflects what's going on in the rest of the industry. It's kind of all like that now. It's gotten people are examining every little thing that goes on.
Steve, in your 2 decades there, what would be differences we could easily see between Pinot Noirs of today versus Pinot Noirs 20 years ago?
Well, I would echo some of what Phillip said about the technology. I know that, a lot of times with producing Pinot Noir, I like to do whole cluster ferments. I like to have stems in the fermenter, not all years, all the time. So the thought of berry sorting Pinot always seems sort of nonsensical to me. We don't really have herbaceous elements in Pinot Noir the way you would with Pyrazines and Cabernet, for example. So, but I will say in 2010 was the first year we worked with an optical sorter, and I was so happy we had it for the Pinot Noir, because we had a real hot spell right after Veraison in 2010, and the ability to sort out those grapes that had been impacted by the heat made a tremendous difference in the quality of the wine. So just those little details are fun to pay attention to. But also, one of the things I really love about Pinot Noir is the people who make Pinot Noir are very, very sharing. So you can go to Pinot Noir conferences in Oregon, in Burgundy, in New Zealand, and everyone is going to open up and tell you how they made their wines, and the things that they're doing in the cellar, and all of those sorts of things. And I've always found the Cabernet world to be a little bit more like kind of a secret society where you,
That's interesting, Phillip. You need a rebuttal from the Cabernet King. What is that about?
Can't tell you. Sorry, lips are sealed.
Katey, I have an interesting question. It's sort of like this, but given that of the 3 winemakers, you seem to be obviously you're the youngest, and you came right in. You're not from a Cabernet or another Bordeaux varietal background. It's Pinot.
Yeah.
So what has informed your love of Pinot Noir, and what do you look at anything from the past, or like what influenced your love of Pinot Noir and how it's informed what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right. I've really only made Pinot Noir and Riesling. That's pretty much what I've made. And those are the two wines that I drink the most of. So there's probably something to that, I suspect. But, it's funny. When I graduated school, it's pretty normal to do kind of a vintage hop around the world and go explore and work. So that's what I did. But after doing that, I landed in the Finger Lakes and made Riesling for a little while, which was super fun. But when I wanted to come back to California, I told my partner, I said, I only want to work in Anderson Valley. And that's all I want to do is Anderson Valley. And he said, you're crazy. There's nothing up there. There's like 2 wineries up there. And he said, no, that's what I'm going to do. And then I ended up doing it for, serendipity again with my past. But it's always been kind of a laser focus for me, but it's also been very focused on the specific regions. So I'm drawn to not only Pinot, but I'm really drawn to specific regions, and Anderson Valley just kind of wooed me when I first visited her years ago. But I don't know. I think being drawn to Pinot, I'm honestly, what it comes down to is you can really truly see the expression of terroir and the site in your region through Pinot. I think there's very few varieties that you can really see the site in, and so that's probably what drew me to Pinot, and I love drinking it. So one and done, right?
Perfect. I have a question from the chat from Don. Is it Jackard or Jacquard? I'm the Eurotrash, so I'm going to say Jacquard. But he says, can you speak to the drink now or hold when it comes to these Pinots? Appreciate your thoughts on cellaring too. Whoever wants to go first.
I can jump in for our wines. The 2018 for Los Carneros was a very cool vintage. So I find that vintage, the wines are kind of tight when they were first bottled, and they needed a little bit of time in bottle to open up. I think they're starting to hit their stride now, and you know, these wines are going to drink great over the next 5 to 7 years. I think you won't be disappointed if you lay them down. Obviously, what you'll lose eventually is some of the fresh fruit character and more of the kind of dried fruit character, and some of the savory notes will come to the fore. But you know, Pinots age beautifully. You don't necessarily need to sit on them for 20, 25 years, but they will reward you. And I think it's really, this is where you like to know what the vintages are, because the warmer vintages are going to open up faster and be a little bit more precocious.
Thanks, Steve. Philip, sorry.
Yeah, well, you know, I was really interested in what Steve was going to say, because Steve really knows a lot about Pinot and Burgundy too, I believe, Steve. I mean, you really have made a study of the variety, and I know Burgundies can age forever. I had a Magnum of 1972 Romani Conti with Don Chapellet and Molly Chapellet, not long before Don died, and he'd been saving it, and La Louise had actually given it to him. She had brought it from France, carried it with her, and gave it to Don and Molly, I don't know, like sometime in the late 70s or something. And so Don was always waiting for the right day to have that wine, and finally we had it, and oh my God, it was like young and vibrant and had so much structure that you kind of wonder what was it like. And plus it was a Magnum, so there was so much of it. And so we were, you know, it's like I knew I couldn't just drink all that was there because I'd never be able to get home. But I don't know if California really ages in that way, California Pinots, but you know, that's a long time for a Pinot to age. But we're drinking some 2012s right now that I think they get so rich, and you know, the color's a little more faded and the fruit gets a little more kind of dried fruit character. It's not raisiny or porty, but there's some of that broken down fruit character, but they're so silky and rich that you know, it makes me think that there is a good 10 years on these wines from a good vintage, and maybe a little longer, but I think people can feel pretty good about 6 to 12 years on these Pinots. And you know, Katey, you'd probably know, because you probably get a chance to pull old Goldeneyes every now and then.
Katey?
Yeah, we had a 2000 Goldeneye a couple months ago, and it was just lovely. And you know, like what Steve and Phillip said, you know, the fresh fruit characters do drop, and that's normal. But you develop these tertiary characters, which are really lovely. You know, a lot of leather and tobacco and dried herbs and dried fruits. So it changes, and I think that's something that you kind of just have to know with wine, is it's going to change and it's going to evolve. But I would say really do your homework. If you're trying to lay something down, do your homework on the vintage, call the winery, make sure, you know, they okay it and everything. Cause like Steve said, every vintage is different, and a warm vintage versus a cool vintage is going to have a dramatic effect on its aging potential.
I have a question I think is interesting. And Philip, we're almost out of time, so I want you to be quick, but hold on, I lost it up here. I can't tell who asked it, but it was Dan Pitt who says, I thought the Russian River Valley was known for its Zinfandel. How could it be suited to both Zinfandel and Pinot Noir? You have 1 minute, Philip.
Ooh, I don't even, I know there's, let's just say the Russian River is actually a large area, and most appellations are not tiny. I think Anderson Valley may be a tiny appellation, but when people start putting together appellations, nobody wants to get left out. So they get bigger, not smaller. And so the Green Valley of Russian River Valley is you may be able to ripen Zinfandel, but it would be tough because this is really the cooler part. But you could be quite a ways west or north and have some of these old vine Zinfandels, but I do think of Alexander Valley, Dry Creek, and parts of Russian River able to do Zinfandel, but it's much more synonymous with Pinot Noir these days than Zinfandel.
Fantastic, guys. We could go for another. I feel like we can go for another half an hour, but we can't. And I found a funny question in the chat, and I can't find it again. But someone said, Anthony, which wine do you make of these? And I am not a winemaker, everyone. I am a wine drinker. And that's why I'm thrilled to be friends with 3 winemakers now. By the way, we're friends, right? Are we friends officially now after all this? I hope. I mean, and now you all know my birthday, everybody. So, you have 10 days to get me a birthday present. But I just want to say this was so wonderful. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did moderating. Both all of you 3 winemakers and also all of you watching. We have about almost 300 people who were on at one point. So I'm thrilled to see interest in Pinot Noir, the discussion about California wine in general, California Pinot Noirs in general, and how they differ from region to region, but also to talk to 3 seasoned winemakers about their approaches and their thoughts on not only their own Pinot Noirs, but Pinot Noirs in general and Pinot Noirs from California. And I hope you all enjoyed this. I'm sorry we didn't get to answer all the questions. I know you can reach out to all of us via Instagram or Google us and send questions that way. But I'd like to thank Phillip, Titus, Steve, Rogstad, and Katey Larwood for being good sports with my Subway series. People are asking train questions on the chat. It's crazy. I've confused everyone. I'm thrilled to be here as your host, and I hope you had a great time tonight. And I hope to see you. I hope we can all get together someday and have wine together, clink glasses, and do what I love to do, which is, I don't just handshake people. I'm the Italian kid from New York. We kind of, it's like a dance move. It's the handshake. There's the shoulder clasp. It turns into a hug kind of move. There's 2 cheeks. There's all that. And I hope that we can do that sooner than later. So cheers, everybody, and have a great night.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Great seeing everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.